That weird feeling crawling up your spine during a horror film when nothing scary is even happening, it's not random. It's science. See, the best horror filmmakers aren't just telling scary stories. They're manipulating your nervous system with precision tools you don't even know exist. They're triggering evolutionary panic buttons hardwired into your brainstem. They're making you afraid on a biological level. And it works because they don't target what you think, they target how your brain is built. These are the secret techniques that they use to create genuine fear. A sound so powerful it can make you feel dread, anxiety, and even physical discomfort. Yet, you can't actually hear it. Weird, right? This is infrasound. It's extremely low frequency sound waves below 20 Hz, basically below the threshold of human hearing. You can't consciously detect these sounds, but your body absolutely feels them. And horror filmmakers, they figured out how to weaponize this response to freak you out without you even figuring out why. It all traces back to 1957, when this French scientist named Vladimir Gavreau was working in this big concrete lab when he and his team kept getting mysteriously sick. We're talking nausea, deep discomfort, just feeling awful for no apparent reason. And after weeks of scratching their heads, they traced the problem to a loosely poised, low-speed motor that was pumping out vibrations at around 7 Hz. When they tried to measure these sounds, their equipment detected nothing. The sound was so low in frequency that it was beyond their equipment's capacity to detect, but it was strong enough to make an entire research team physically ill. So why does infrasound mess with us like this? These super low frequencies can actually resonate with your internal organs. At certain frequencies, infrasound stimulates the vestibular system in your inner ear, the same system that handles your balance and spatial orientation. This creates sensations that feel exactly like vertigo, anxiety, and unease. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes a ton of sense. Natural disasters like earthquakes and avalanches produce infrasound before they strike. Even certain predators, like tigers, produce it. So, our bodies developed this subconscious alarm system that kicks in your fight or flight response whenever you're exposed to these frequencies, even if your conscious brain has no clue what's happening. Some researchers actually demonstrated this happening at a concert in 2003. They secretly slipped some infrasound into the performance, and the audience reported feeling all kinds of weird stuff. Anxiety, chills, nervousness, even this creepy feeling that something unseen was in the room with them. But nobody could explain why they felt that way. So yeah, it works very well. And horror movies like Paranormal Activity, Irreversible, and The Conjuring use this trick all the time. You know those dolls or CGI characters that just give you the creeps for no good reason? There's actually a name for that feeling, and it's called the Uncanny Valley. A Japanese roboticist named Masahiro Mori actually identified this back in 1970. The Uncanny Valley is this weird dip in our comfort level whenever we encounter something that looks almost, but not quite, human. It follows this pattern. As something becomes more human-like, we usually feel more comfortable with it, but only up to a point. When something hits about 90% human resemblance, our comfort suddenly crashes into disgust or fear. It only goes back up when perfect human likeness is achieved. And get this, it's not just us. This isn't some cultural thing or a weird human quirk. See, in 2009, these Princeton researchers did a study with macaque monkeys. They showed them various images, real monkey faces, cartoonish monkey faces, and these almost but not quite realistic computer-generated monkey faces. And the monkeys straight up avoided looking at the nearly real images. They experience the same uncanny valley effect that we do. But a big question is, why would evolution program this kind of a response into our brains? There are a couple different theories that could explain. The most compelling ones involves disease avoidance. See, throughout our evolutionary history, if someone had unnatural movement, weird skin texture, or just off facial expressions, they might have been carrying something contagious. So our brains developed this quick detection system that triggers disgust and makes us want to back away whenever something looks almost but not quite right. It's basically a built-in protection against getting sick. Another theory suggests these almost human figures remind us subconsciously of corpses, triggering our innate fear of death. Either way, it's a deep-seated response, and horror filmmakers know it. In fact, they exploit this like crazy. Think about The Ring, with Samara's jerky movements, or the blank Michael Myers mask in Halloween, which, by the way, was literally just a William Shatner mask painted white. Even movies that didn't mean to be scary, like The Polar Express, freaked people out because the characters fell right into that uncanny valley. The CGI was good, but not quite good enough, and that's what made it disturbing. Surprisingly enough, the 2019 version of Cats is actually a great example of how this uncanny valley effect takes place. Those CGI human-cat hybrids hit the uncanny valley so perfectly that people reported feeling physically uncomfortable watching it. It wasn't just bad CGI, it was CGI that specifically triggered our evolutionary disgust response. That movie turned out to be an accidental horror film because of this effect. Do you ever notice how certain horror scenes make you feel off balance and uneasy even when nothing obviously scary is happening? Chances are you're looking at a Dutch angle or a canted angle. It's really simple. The filmmaker just tilts the camera, so the horizon isn't level with the bottom of the frame. That's it. But this tiny adjustment messes with your head in such an interesting way. It immediately creates this feeling of disorientation and psychological unease. The name has a funny backstory too. It's actually not Dutch at all. It's a corruption of Deutsch, German, angle, because German expressionist filmmakers in the 1920s used it constantly in films like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. They used these tilted shots to visually show madness and psychological distress. So why does simply tilting a camera make us feel weird? It's all about how your brain processes spatial orientation. Your sense of balance comes from the vestibular system in your inner ear, which works closely with your visual system. And your brain is hardwired to use the horizon line as a reference point for determining which way is up. When this line is tilted in a Dutch angle shot, it creates a conflict between what your vestibular system feels, like you're sitting upright, and what your visual system sees, the world is tilted. The sensory conflict happens in your parietal lobe, which is trying to integrate these contradictory signals. When they don't line up, it triggers a subtle stress response, basically your brain's way of saying, something's wrong here. It's the same mechanism that makes you feel queasy on a rocking boat. It might be overly simplistic to say that just a change in the angle can make you feel uneasy, but to some extent, it's true. A slight tilt of about 5 to 10 degrees creates a subtle feeling, while going extreme with 45 degrees or more can make viewers feel significantly disoriented and anxious. Hitchcock was a master at this. He used Dutch angles all the time in movies like Strangers on a Train and Psycho to make viewers anxious before anything actually threatening happened on the screen. The Third Man from 1949 became famous for using Dutch angles everywhere to emphasize the main character's alienation in a post-war Vienna. The director actually used this technique so much that another filmmaker kind of set him straight right afterwards, saying, dude, learn to hold your camera straight. And in the relatively recent cinematic history, you'll see Dutch angles all over the Blair Witch Project, 12 Monkeys, and Sam Raimi's Evil Dead movies to signal when someone is getting possessed. Did you notice? Now listen to this. You're hearing a sound that seems to constantly rise in pitch, building tension that never resolves. Yet somehow, it never actually gets any higher. Sounds impossible, right? Yet you've already heard it. That's called the Shepard tone, and it's one of the coolest psychological tricks in horror soundtracks. See, a cognitive scientist named Roger Shepard discovered it in 1964. It's basically several sine waves separated by octaves playing at the same time. As these tones gradually shift, they create this perfect illusion of an endlessly ascending or descending scale that never actually goes anywhere, kind of like an audio version of those endless staircase illusions. But why does this freak us out so much? See, your auditory cortex is constantly making predictions about where sounds are headed. It's a survival mechanism that evolved to help us anticipate approaching dangers or track prey. But the Shepard tone completely messes with this system by presenting an impossible situation. Your brain keeps expecting the rising tone to reach some kind of conclusion, some kind of climax, but it never does. This violation of expectation creates what neuroscientists call a dopaminergic prediction error signal. Basically, your neural circuits keep firing something's wrong messages that never actually get resolved. Put simply, it keeps you on edge because your brain's waiting for a resolution that is never going to come. Christopher Nolan is obsessed with this technique. That endless feeling of tension in Dunkirk, shepherd tones. The bat pod sound in The Dark Knight, same thing. In horror movies, it creates this mounting dread that neurologically cannot resolve itself. Going dark is the obvious move. Honestly, it's kind of boring. Modern horror filmmakers have found a smarter way to mess with your head by messing with color. Instead of just dimming the lights, they drain the vibrancy out of everything. Many horror films have that cold, bluish, washed out look, right? It's not just a style choice from the editor. It's a calculated technique to trigger disgust and aversion responses in your brain. See, we've evolved to associate rich, vibrant color with health. Think of a warm, healthy pink face with good circulation. But when someone's sick or dying, the color fades. Same thing with rotting stuff. Less color equals danger, and your brain knows it. That's why desaturated films like The Ring, Saw, or Hostel just make you feel uneasy before anything is really happening. Your insular cortex and anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's gross detectors, light up, which subtly nudge you into discomfort. No monsters required. See, the truth is, most engaging horror films don't just throw scary stuff on the screen. They tap straight into how your brain is wired and try to exploit the vulnerable areas. To an extent, it's kind of like psychological warfare. And that's the brilliance of modern horror. It's not just what you see, it's how they twist your perception to make you feel scared, without you ever knowing why.